Welcome to the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco Podcast. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, your host. We're talking all about mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling small businesses, as well as corporate law. We are taking our experience closing over $10 billion of transactions since founding Dean Street Law 5 years ago, and my experience being an M&A and corporate attorney for over a decade and making it accessible to you as an entrepreneur. I hope that this helps you in navigating the complex world of mergers and acquisitions. And also, we're always happy to be a resource for you here at Dean Street Law. You can always apply to work with us through our complimentary consultations linked in our show notes. And a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who's subscribed and left us a 5-star review. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and also leave us a 5-star review. It's one of the best ways to support us as a small business. And also be sure to share with your friends and colleagues on social media, through text, email, or however is easiest. It means the world to us that you're supporting our content and helps us make more to support you in your journey. Welcome back to another episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco Podcast. I'm your host, founder of Dean Street Law, having closed over $10 billion of transactions, specializing in lower middle market mergers and acquisitions, helping buyers and sellers buy and sell small businesses. I'm so excited to share that we have a prototype of my new book, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, a legal guide to buying a small business. I hope that you will check it out. It has so many incredible jam-packed things in it, including how to use AI to help you buy a business ethically, as well as tons of information on the legal aspects of buying a business. It is incredible. It has so much information in it. So be sure to check it out in the show notes so that you can pre-order it, get on the wait list for it, everything like that. So I'm really excited to start today's episode, which is one of the biggest questions I get. Let me put this right up here. So I am so excited to start today's episode with one of the number one questions that I receive, which are, what are the legal fees for buying and selling a small business? So this is a complicated question that a lot of lawyers don't like to answer because it depends on so many factors, and there's so many different styles of how people price out their legal fees. So I'm going to spill the tea and we're going to talk about what the legal fees are for buying or selling a business. It's super important whether you're on the buy side or sell side to really understand what these costs are, because it is going to deeply impact your net return on investment. It is a financial number. It is important, but you need to make sure that you're well represented as well. So in having these hard conversations with your attorney and also making sure there's clarity is super important to make sure that you're aligned and that you're budgeted correctly and that you're able to do this successfully. So let's talk about a few common structures that you'll see and where you see them in the marketplace. So hourly fees are very prevalent. That is what probably 95 to 98% of attorneys charge, is an hourly fee. So they will give you an estimate of what it will be based on that hourly fee, but they don't have too much skin in the game. If it takes more or less, some people might think that that's a good way to save money. It can be, but it's also dicey because a lot of times in big law, those numbers creep considerably higher when a deal goes a little bit funky or a little bit sideways, or there's some complexities that people didn't think about because they didn't care enough to ask enough questions to really understand the scope of work that would be involved, because you're asking them a quick question, they're going to give you a quick answer. There's the other aspect, which is fixed fees. This is becoming more prevalent. We introduced it into our law firm many years ago, and it has been the only thing that anybody has ever wanted to use. So we've just basically have only put forth fixed fee proposals because at this point, that's what everybody wants. I really like fixed fee proposals because I have over a decade of experience doing mergers and acquisitions. I know how much it costs from a legal perspective to buy and sell a business, but I also put my word behind it and I put it in writing how much it's going to cost. Now it does have a scope of work so that doesn't provide an unlimited amount of legal services. That wouldn't be fair, right? So I ask a lot of questions and I really get to the meat and potatoes of what the scope of work will be for the transaction. I ask how many entities are the assets or the business held by, how many entities are you going to have in your structure buying the business, and if there are things that are unknown, are you buying the real estate, are you not, that's totally fine, but at least I can tell you where the open parts are for the estimate and for the scope of work that are going to be likely to be things that we need to talk about aside from the main part of buying the business. So we have conversations about how many entities do you need to start? Are you buying the real estate? Are you fundraising? How many employees do they have? How many contracts roughly do you have contracts for every single customer? Or are we talking about 3 major contracts? So we really ask a lot of questions in our consultation calls to actually develop a really strong scope of work that in so many different transactions has been spot on. It's super rare that it's not spot on. The only times that it's ever not been spot on is when they decide to basically buy the real estate when they hadn't planned to. And then we're like, okay, well, we've got to, add that to the scope of work and send out a separate proposal from that. But we have always been spot on and never had to charge more for all of our scopes of work that we agree upon. And the nice thing about it is, for us at least, that is the amount that you pay, and we talk about the payment plan for it, or there's a pay in full discount, and and have confidence of what it's going to cost to buy the business. And then the others are deal-based pricing, and sometimes there are sort of success fee type of pricing or percentage type of pricing in the legal field. Typically, this is in your very highest levels of law firms, of your top, 10 law firms, where they feel like they're adding so much value that they should be getting a percentage of the business value in addition to their legal work. So this is not saying like it's a contingent fee basis. I've never seen that in transactions. I've never seen contingent fee basis in transactions, because a lawyer can't properly assess whether they would win the case, because it's due to the cooperation of both parties, and there may not be the same incentivization to win a lawsuit and win money versus pay money, right? So you're not going to see a contingent fee basis in transactional law, but sometimes you will see a success fee or a closing fee bonus. Now, let me be clear, the legal fees of the business of the law firm will be covered whether or not that success fee bonus is earned, but it is an additional amount that they earn related to the successful closing beyond their actual fees, to compensate for the fact that they feel like they're making the deal possible. Kind of like how a broker or something would make the deal possible. And then there's hybrid models of flexibility between all of those. When it comes to navigating corporate law, entrepreneurship, and managing small businesses, experience matters. Dean Street Law is a boutique corporate firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions, and additional focus in real estate, commercial transactions, finance, and corporate governance. With over $10 billion in deals closed, Dean Street Law has extensive experience representing hundreds of clients in thousands of transactions, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Whether you need startup guidance or advice on closing multi-million or multi-billion-dollar deals, we're your trusted partner every step of the way. Visit deanstreetlaw.com in the show notes to schedule a complimentary consultation. Now, what are the factors that are going to influence your legal fees? All of it's going to be based on scope of work, whether you're doing hourly or success fee or flat fee. All of it's going to be driven by how much work is required for this deal to go to closing. So the questions that I was asking, such as the industry it's in, is it regulated or is it not? What size of the deal is it? Because there's a lot of different complexities in terms of, if it's a $2 million deal, we don't want a 60-page purchase agreement. We probably want something more like a 25 or 30-page purchase agreement, because it's going to be overkill for this size deal, right? So there's obviously more work in a longer agreement for like a $5 or $10 million deal, where they have in-house CFO and they can attest to the veracity of the financial documents. And it's not just an owner saying, my accountant does everything and I don't know if it's actually legally correct. You also have HR type of representations and warranties, and everything gets a little bit more complex as you have a deal that's greater in size. And then it's also different for us, most of the time it washes out, whether it's a stock purchase or an asset purchase. Typically, stock purchases have higher requirements for diligence and disclosures and everything like that. Whereas an asset purchase, while you do the same due diligence and everything, there's more documentation. So for us, it basically washes out, but some people do price it differently. And then of course, the scope of due diligence for financial, legal, operational reviews, all of those will impact your scope of work and your associated costs. So we have a base package for our due diligence that we review. We review every response to our due diligence request list and every question we ask. And then if you would like us to review compliance or UCC searches or whatnot, those would be separate from our standard due diligence package. And then negotiation, the amount of negotiation, the nice thing with a flat fee is that at least for our firm, we do include unlimited amount of negotiation. We do have a cap on hours. We're not looking at it closely. It's more to just be like, hey, we can't work 500 hours and you pay us for 5. That's the idea. But multiple rounds of negotiation, ooh, that's going to hurt. If in an hourly fee situation, that is going to hurt. Because if you have to keep going back and forth on the same thing, that's going to get expensive. And then post-closing support. We always have some level of post-closing support that we provide to our clients because that is inevitable that there is a certain amount of work that needs to be done post-closing to properly transition the business. So what should you expect from your legal counsel? You should expect someone who is going to tell you what needs to be done in the transaction, do what needs to be done, and of course respect your decisions and calls on whether something is material or not material or how it would be accepted or not. They're supposed to show you the risks, show you the benefits, and you make the calls of whether something's the right deal or not. I've heard so many rumors that the lawyers kill the deals. I've never seen lawyers actually kill deals, but I respect that there may not be the best lawyers. Absolutely. I would not hire every single lawyer for sure. I wouldn't even hire a lot of people that I've worked with previously at prior firms because you have to know that the person that you're working with is specialized in exactly what you're doing and have the experience necessary to guide you through the process. Experience is everything. If they don't have mergers and acquisitions on their website as a key thing that they do in their business, you should not be hiring them to do this transaction. It doesn't matter whether it's a $50,000 purchase or a $500,000 purchase or a $5 million or $50 million purchase. If they don't have mergers and acquisitions, there's no reason to have their support on the transaction. Yes, it is expensive to have good legal support, but it's well worth it. And then you also want to be clear on what their role is. I like fixed fees and associated scopes of work because it's very clear what the scope of work and role is of the attorney. And then also you're looking for transparency on fees. Are they providing you an estimate, but it could go wildly above that or not? And then what value are they providing? The goal is for them to provide documentation, mitigate risk, make sure that you have a smooth transaction or as smooth as possible. So the question from there is, how do we structure our fees and what are the actual numbers, right? So you can see legal support quoted out. I've heard quotes of like 5,000 and I've heard quotes of 300,000 for roughly similar deals of what I would expect to be vastly different. Now, what you get is what you pay for to a certain extent. So who's saying that they can do something for $5,000, someone without experience, someone who is just going to provide a purchase agreement. And we've already talked in so many different episodes on this podcast about how you cannot legally transfer a business with a purchase agreement alone. So you can't get a deal done in $5,000. It's extremely, extremely hard. Yes, if you're doing an asset purchase for a $50,000 business and the only real asset is a bill of sale for a tractor, sure, you can have a deal done for $5,000 because you don't have contracts or employees, whatnot. Right. There may be the one-off where a bill of sale, and a bill of sale doesn't cost $5,000, but like there may be the one-off random things that you can say, sure, that would actually work to transfer it because it's held by the individual. It doesn't need consents, all these things. But if you're looking at a $2 million deal or $1 million deal and you think $5,000 worth of legal fees is actually going to help you legally transfer the business, you are wasting your money spending $5,000 and you're wasting your money spending $1 million or $2 million on the business, because it will not legally transfer the business and you'll be holding nothing in your hand after having paid millions of dollars of your life savings. So that's not what you want. The other side of it is the $300,000. So I've said, talk to people about transaction costs and everything. And we're talking about, maybe a 20, maybe probably, I don't think it was a $20 million deal. Maybe it was like a $10 million deal or something like that. And they said that they paid $300,000 in legal fees for Big Law to work on it. Oh, that hurts my heart. There's no reason that deal, and I got the specifics of the deal. I know that it was a single entity, it didn't include real estate, all of the things. They shouldn't have paid $300,000 for those. The reason that they did is because they had they would pay $5,000 to $25,000 of legal fees, and then the rest of it was contingent upon the deal, not contingent upon, but it was payable upon closing. But a lot of the time, these big law firms, one, aren't incentivized to actually work on the deal if they're not paid until closing, because they have a lot of other things. And if it's big law, lovingly, $2 million is nothing. All of their clients are in the $30-40 million minimum deal transaction size. So they're going to be putting you with the least, generally speaking, going to be putting you with the least experienced attorneys and waiting to do all of the work until the end when there's a high likelihood of closing. And then it's going to be a rush for you and the seller and a bad experience. And I talked to this person. I was like, here's how we would have done it. Here's what the fees would have been. And they were like, oh my gosh, in 15 minutes, I've gotten more value from talking to you than I did spending a couple $100,000 on legal fees on this transaction. And that's shocking and sad to me, but it is what you see all the time. When you have firms that are going to have payments not due until closing, it's not contingent upon closing, but it's not due until closing, it's going to inflate the fees because they have to account for the likelihood of closing, the likelihood of collection, the likelihood or the time value of money. All of these things are going to drastically inflate the fees. We like to provide the actual fees that it takes to close the deal. We have a team with us. We have a team of at least 5 working on your deal. At due diligence, you're going to have 5 people working on your deal. It's all hands on deck for due diligence. It's all hands on deck for drafting ancillary transaction documents, because deals move quickly and you have to have that team to support you. Thinking about buying a business? Unlock the secrets of successful acquisitions with Acquisition Insights, your legal roadmap for success. With over 81 modules of video lectures, written materials, guides, and checklists, we provide in-depth guidance to navigate every step of the process. From initial interest to closing the deal, get the expertise you need to make informed decisions. You can also access our battle-tested templates in the Acquisition Insights course and templates bundle, including our template LOIs, letters of intent, pre- and post-LOI due diligence request list, material deal terms lists, and more. Visit lauradifrancesco.co/the-shop today and take the first step towards buying your dream business. All the links are in the show notes. So we do realistic fees, and that's typically 1% or less of an actual deal transaction size. Now, if you're talking about $500,000 deal, that's not going to be really applicable because you have that size and there's a minimum amount of time and work that it takes to get a deal done. If you're thinking about a couple $100,000 deal and it's really, really simple, doesn't have employees, anything like that, you could get it away with like a $15,000 transaction cost just for the acquisition of the business, not creating holding companies owned with other people or fundraising or real estate or anything like that. When you're looking at a typical $2 million deal, you're typically looking at a $25,000 to $30,000 transaction fee. When you're looking at the transaction fee overall and then thinking about having your holding company, single member LLC would be included in that, but not real estate, etc. So, roughly 1% to lower than 1% is what you'll see as typical transaction fees for Dean Street Law and most law firms that are going to actually provide you services throughout. We do a structure where it's milestone based. We receive payments prior to working on every single thing because we are paying our team members and we're not responsible for financing your transaction, respectfully, because it's not inflating our fees. That is not what's priced into it. If it's, of a super, super important, we can certainly discuss it. I'm always open to a conversation, but our fees are not structured to finance the legal fees of a transaction. That's not the way we've structured things. We are transparent. We have a flat fee. We have milestone based. We're providing incredible value for the work that we do. But at the same time, we have to provide our income and payroll for our employees that are supporting your transaction. So if you'd like specific numbers on the exact price of your transaction, whether you're buying or selling a business, please schedule a consultation call. We provide exact numbers. We ask you a lot of questions, provide exact numbers, provide a proposal with all of the information in the scope of work. It's very client-centric. We have clear communications on expectations, what's included, what's not included. And that's really important when you're trying to figure out who you want to work with on the legal side, making sure that they will support you as much as you need to be supported throughout the transaction, and make sure, of course, that you're able to legally buy or sell your business. So in order to help you through this process, when you're talking with your attorney, be sure to ask questions, what it involves, who's supporting you on the transaction, what level of experience they have. Of course, do your due diligence. Don't ask this to someone who it's on the website and you could have learned that. But if you aren't sure who's going to be working on the transaction, always ask that. Ask them to define the scope of work of what that includes very clearly. And then also account a little bit extra for complexities that you didn't think of, didn't think you were going to buy the real estate, then you decide to add into the budget for that, for sure. I hope this has been helpful talking about the legal fees associated with buying and selling a business. It is one of the most requested things that people ask and no one wants to talk about. So I hope this has been helpful. Be sure to subscribe. Check out my book, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, a legal guide to buying a small business. Be sure to get on the wait list, pre-order when you can, leave us a 5-star review on the book and this podcast. And I'll see you in the next episode of Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco. Cheers and happy deal making. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and that it brought you one step closer to mastering the art of mergers and acquisitions. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in our discussion, please leave a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us. And share this podcast with your network, friends, and colleagues. For more in-depth resources, be sure to visit our website, deanstreetlaw.com, where you can find articles, guides, and more information on our services. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest episodes, updates, tips, and exclusive content. You can find us on LinkedIn, Search Funder, at LMDFrancesco on X, and at Dean Street Law on Instagram. Join us on our next episode where we'll explore more deal-making insights. Cheers and happy deal making.